Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Graduation Team Efforts February Equity Webinar. This is a place where we explore topics relating to equity and graduation success. I'm Kathy Anderson, OSPI Graduation Equity Specialist. And today, our topic is growing with assessment, using data to support equity for all students. Here at OSPI, our vision is every student ready for career, college, and life. And OSPI's role through our mission is to provide equal access to quality education, providing resources, tools, data, and technical assistance to provide those of you who are much closer to the front lines impacting student performance. The key to this mission is the performance indicators. Today we're talking about meeting standards on statewide assessments for English language arts, math, science, and some other indicators that are in preview for press release are the 9th grade course failure and graduation. And that press release is going to be happening on February 22nd, so if you haven't taken a look at those, please look at those in your EDS application. This presentation is recorded, and you will have a chance through email to look at that next week, as well as get a copy in the handouts of the actual presentation itself. For today, I am joined by Marissa Rathbone and Aira Jackson from Teaching and Learning, and they're going to share with us some information about assessment. Teaching and Learning is modeling the importance of collaboration across departments and considering how data and equity conversations can serve one another. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aira Jackson.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope that this presentation really is just the start of us having bigger conversations about how the data that we are putting together on behalf of all of you will help us strengthen our conversations, most importantly about equity. So up on your screen, you're looking at a picture of equal versus equitable. And we chose this picture. I know quite a few people have seen the ones with different children watching a baseball game, all of those pieces. But we really like this one because I think it gets the point, kind of lets us take a step back and look at what happens when we talk about providing equal education to all. We know now, after years and years of research and studies and outcomes, that that's just not working for our students here in Washington. And though it was a great goal, and it's one that we really worked hard towards, we now know that we really have to move towards equitable education and really kind of look at who is the child who is in front of us? What do they need to be successful and to leave our system ready for college, career, and life as a citizen of Washington and of the United States? So just take a moment. I'm going to give you some private think time. Just kind of look at this picture, and Kathy is monitoring the chat box. And if anybody has any thoughts or comments, we'll try to pull a couple out before we move on to this slide. So I'll give you about 30 seconds to look at this and think about it. All right, thank you. Hopefully that gave you some time, and if you're watching this with your colleagues, hopefully this will kind of foster some great conversation, and you can see where we got the image from down below when we give credit to it. So it's definitely an image that you can get out online for you to use in your schools and districts. So as we progress, let's look at today's goals. Our goals for today is how do we use data to inform equity conversations? How are we demonstrating OSPI's we're going to demonstrate how OSPI is presenting data. And then we're going to show you access. We're going to kind of do a walkthrough so we don't just say, here's the pretty picture. We're actually going to walk you through it. And then we're also going to explore the ways you can use these performance indicators, how to have those rich conversations about student outcomes and what are the next steps to make sure that all students are achieving. And then really to invite conversations about how to use the data in your work. This is an ongoing conversation. This is something that we're not just doing today. We're constantly talking about it. And so hopefully this will be a way for you to share with one of your colleagues later today. Okay, so first and foremost, for the state of Washington, we are measuring success. The measure of success for us is to increase 4- and 5-year school graduation rates, also to increase the enrollment and completion rates and decrease the remediation rates in post-secondary training and education. Two really huge measures of success, but ones that we're all working on together cross-collaboratively within the building and with you, our colleagues out in our schools and districts. Our performance indicators are the different pieces. What are the expected skills for kindergartners? What we see through the Walk Kids developed tool. Then also meeting standard. What do we see with our 3rd and 8th grade, 11th grade students when they're taking the ELA state assessment and math assessment with Smarter Balance, the Smarter Balance Consortium? Growing towards proficiency as determined by the student growth percentiles. Enrolling in Algebra 1 and integrated math by the end of 8th grade, really pushing our students to that next frontier of really growing and working towards earning that high school credit. Enrolling in college level courses and earning dual credit. Who is doing that, and how do we make sure that every child has that opportunity? Taking the SAT and ACT and getting college ready scores. And finally, access to financial aid for post-secondary learning. We know that that is such a huge piece. Once we make sure our students are successful, how do we make sure that they're able to continue going and growing? And so we definitely take that very seriously as we prepare our students. And finally, we want to help our students avoid the 9th grade course failure. As Kathy said, that information is going to be available, so we'll be able to use that as the conversation starter in the next couple of weeks. We really want to make sure that students are getting in school time. Suspensions and expulsions are not helping our students succeed, so what can we do to make sure that our students are getting that seat time and learning and building a community of their own? And again, that chronic absenteeism, really working with our communities and families and students to understand how important it is to consistently be present, because so much of our standards and our education build on top of each other as a spiral, and we need our students to be present all the time. So those are the 3 things that we're working towards, really helping our students. And we have so many different tools and resources here at OSPI, but also out within our educational service district. So if you have more interest in this, just get in touch with us and we can point you in the right direction. All right. So now we're going to define proficiency. And as Marissa, Kathy, and Dixie and I were preparing for this, this became a really rich conversation for us of what is proficiency and how do we define it. So I know that we all kind of have our own definition of proficiency, but we're going to calibrate for today just so you know how we're looking at it through the lens of OSPI and what it means for us specifically for our data tool, our data analytic tool. So right now we're looking at proficiency is a high degree of competence or skill or, sorry, I apologize there, a high degree of competence or skill or expertise. He demonstrated proficiency in Chinese. We could put that he or she demonstrated proficiency in whatever new skill, new class we're taking about. So looking at a high degree of competence or skill. And that is what our Smarter Balance assessments do. They are summative state assessments that allow us to see what is the competency or skill that our student has at the end of 3rd grade, at the end of 8th grade, at the end of 11th grade. That is what we are tracking as we start looking at our data analytic tool. So how to be proficient. So one of the things, as I mentioned, is performing well on state assessments. The other one is also on track to graduate. As I said, one of the pieces we're working towards is increasing that 4- to 5th-year graduation rate. And then finally, also demonstrating success in a variety of areas. We know that the assessments that we use at the end of the year are ELA and math, and that's just one facet of a student's whole level of proficiency. And so we want to honor the fact that we know that students are proficient in an array of places beyond just the state assessment. And as we think about our implementation of the Every Student Succeed Act, is really looking at the whole child. Where are our children being successful, and how do we measure that across the board to make sure that we know that we are, growing great citizens for Washington and for our country. So as we think about proficient, we're going to hone in on our state assessments because that is the one equitable measure we have for all of our students in Washington to make sure that we are taking a glimpse at how we're doing with teaching and where our students are doing with making proficiency, becoming confident, showing growth in those arenas. So our performance indicators are grow towards proficiency in ELA and math as determined by our student growth percentiles in 4th and 6th grade, and then meet standard on the 3rd, 8th, and 11th grade statewide English language arts and math assessments and the 8th grade statewide science assessments. Now again, remember, we were talking about proficiency, and today this is where we're going to hone in on so we can really see it because this is something that we all partake in together as a state. I'm going to pause right now because I just threw out a lot of information. Keffy, do we have any questions out there?
There are no questions at this point.
Okay.
So we're doing okay, although they do love the graphic.
Okay, okay. Yay, okay, good. All right, thank you. Okay, so our state assessment data points. As I said, we have our Smarter Balanced Assessment in math and ELA for grades 3 through 8th and 11th grade. We have the end of course exams, math, algebra 1, or geometry, and biology, and a measurement of student success, the MSP, science grades 5th and 8th grade. So these are the assessment points that go into our data analytics that we'll be reviewing in a moment. So the testing timeline by grade. This is where we have the testing timeline, where we see WA Kids. WA Kids is available through kindergarten through 2nd grade. Right now, it's only being implemented at the kindergarten level, but it does have the ability to go all the way up through 2nd grade. And then we have our Smarter Balance Assessment that goes from 3rd through 8th grade, and you can see down below the measurement of student progress, that MSP in science. And then from 9th through 12th grade, we have the end of course exams. And those are just the pieces that I mentioned before. And again, at 11th, the Smarter Balance assessment. So that really kind of gives you an idea when we're pulling that data in and looking at the analytics of where we're getting the information to be able to have these rich conversations about student progress, about equity, and about what changes need to happen to make sure all students are successful. So who is included in the data and who's not? This is really important when we start delving into this data because I know a lot of conversations come up is, did we include this person? Did we take out this person? All these pieces. So these are the two big pieces. And I believe, Marissa, you're going to show them where to access the business rules or the parameters of what, which students are included in the data. So included is school districts, buildings, students in Washington State. Not including is in avoiding publishing identifiable information. Districts with fewer than 10 students are filtered out. This data is still available through building data files and EDS. So if you're listening from a small school, you may not have your data in there, and that's more. And our first and foremost is to always protect our students and their identifiable information. But we can help you look at the data on your private page through EDS. So if you need help with that, just let us know. All right, so our graduation requirements, as we said, we've talked a lot about what is expected for our graduation to graduate from Washington schools. And as you know, we're going through a transition from 20 credits to 24 credits. That is for the class of 2019. We'll have to have had the 24 credits. As you can see, there's also the idea of the fact that one thing that's not changing is the high school and beyond plan and Washington State history. That is something consistent. We want our students to know where they're coming from, and we want them to also be thoughtful of what they're planning for after they leave our system. And finally, we have those assessments. The assessments right now, but could be changing literally any moment, is that we know we have our assessments, the Smarter Balance Assessment in English Language Arts and Math, and we also know with the transition to the next generation science standards, in the next couple of years, we will be piloting that assessment. I can't go into more details because I'm not familiar with it, but I know that that is on the horizon. And so we will keep you updated on those requirements as they become available. Okay, so assessment graduation requirements. I'm just going to have you take a look at this from class of 2017-19 of what you see. As you see, the biology course is there. That might be going away and taking its place as the next generation science standards, but similar to what I just talked about before in a different format. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the assessment analytics. This is the reason why we went to this tool is to allow for our schools more than anything the opportunity to have comparisons, to be able to compare, not to tier ourselves and say who's better, who's worse, or all of that, but really to kind of look at who's having success in certain areas, where to go to as we see a lighthouse school and they're being successful. We want to go and have those rich conversations and find out what did they do, how do we emulate their practice or try something new. So we really want to be able to be transparent to see where people are being successful so we can get that support and make it a success for the whole state. Again, same reason for districts. Because so many of us do so much work with our educational service districts, we also put that in as a tab so you can see who are your neighbors. Most likely, so if you can say, wow, my school district only 20 minutes down the road, same population is having more success on this one assessment, I need to schedule some time with them to find out what they're doing. Really building that collegial, that community of practice where we talk to one another and we are sharing our best practices. Also looking at those student subgroups. This is a piece where we're really going to have those rich conversations about why are some groups of students being more successful than others. And we'll kind of talk about how we can have those conversations in a way that really yields outcomes so that students will become more successful. And then finally, a multiple year review. I know when I was playing around in this tool earlier this week, it really is, I just love it. It really gives us a chance to take a peek at how schools are doing, where they progressed, and what they're doing. And I think when I was talking to Marissa, I was like, I want to call this school and find out what's going on. I'm interested to get out and talk with people. So hopefully that's what you'll walk away with today. So why report assessment data in this way? As I said before, and we said at the beginning of this, we want to invite conversations about equity. We're talking about from students who are receiving free and reduced price lunches, to girls and boys, to students of different ethnicities, language acquisition. We really want to make sure that all of our students are getting the best education that we can provide. Again, coming back to what is equitable. What do we need to do to make sure that every student achieves in Washington State? So we also want to be able to expand that focus only on proficiency to include student growth. And Marissa's going to take you through that. And then finally, review places where achievement is notable. Like I said, those lighthouse schools, those schools that are having great outcomes, we want to be able to talk to them and find out what's happening there and see how we can work together to bring that to our own community. So we're going to stop, and Kefi just started a poll for you. So I'm going to have her take over for this moment.
So we'd like to ask you, are you currently using proficiency data in your work? Yes, extensively, sometimes, very little, or no, not at all. And while we poll for that question, we've got Marissa here, and we have a question also, and possibly for Aira. The proficiencies seem to be aimed at the college-bound students. What about those students who are not college-bound? How are we measuring their performance?
That is a great question, and I can tell you that we are with the transition in administration to Superintendent Reichdahl. That is a conversation that's come up quite frequently in the past month, and we are looking to see how we ensure that those students are going to have a measure of success too. So I think it's a great question. It's one that's on our radar. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you at this moment, but please know we are thinking about it quite deeply.
I would also add that as you're looking at the performance indicators that we listed earlier in the presentation, we're not just looking at assessment data as an indicator. We're also looking at graduation rates and attendance rates. And as we dig into particularly subgroups and ask questions about why are some students succeeding in areas where others may not be as much, we're asking ourselves the really hard questions about why that might be, and our hope is that as a result of these types of presentations, you're asking yourself the same question. We don't anticipate that all the answers will be the same from one district to the other or one ESD to another, but that we're doing these sorts of deep questions at the same time and asking the hard questions and finding out different answers and ways to address it. So we really don't believe that assessment is the only way to answer these questions, but it is one way to start asking ourselves these questions and hopefully finding some good answers.
And just so that you're aware, as a result of our poll, for people who are currently using proficiency data in their work, the majority, 44%, says sometimes, and we've got about 25% on extensively and very little. So,
all right. Okay. Good. Well, that means some of you are on the edge of your seat for us to walk you through the new data dashboard. That's good news. So we're going to use the word Tableau a lot, and I'm going to describe a little bit about what Tableau is. But our overall aim, as it's been said before, is to help make this data dashboard more accessible, more user-friendly, and help you figure out what questions you can be asking yourselves to find those deep answers that help to inform our instructional practices. So the tool itself is not the answer, but we're hoping that it's a starting point, and we're trying to make it easier for you to use. So that's one of the main goals of today, and we're going to walk you through it. So what is Tableau? You've heard us use this term a lot of times. Unlike proficiency, the definition does not necessarily align with what we're talking about. So a group of models or motionless figures representing a scene from a story or from history. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But
you're not going to do the French.
The French, I'm not going to do the French. That is not one of my competencies. I have others. That's not one of them. So today, when we use the term Tableau, we're actually talking about a data software tool, a data visualization software tool that we are using to present all these performance indicators. The reason why we chose this tool, or not why Aira and I did, but why our very smart data government and student information folks did, is because it is similar to Excel, so it has that functionality, but it's more flexible in the way you can look at the data. And also importantly, it is usable on both Macs and PC. So previously, the tools that we were using were only accessible on PCs, but not on Macs, and we want to honor where everyone is coming from. So hopefully, the tool is more accessible to more people, which helps to increase the chances that you'll use the data. So you may be asking yourself, if you haven't before, you are now, how can you utilize the data dashboard? And we're hoping that wherever you're starting from will help you move the needle forward a little bit more. We understand that some of you are joining us today with a very deep knowledge of how to use the data dashboard. Some of you have never even used it, even once. And we're hoping, regardless of where you're starting from, will help you dig a little bit deeper into the tool itself. So to the data dashboard, we know that as we go through this, you may want to start your own exploration. We know the temptation is high, that the first thing you're going to want to do, as you are human, as are we, you're going to want to look at your own data. What I would ask you to do is to just hold tight. Hold that excitement and enthusiasm and walk through the process with us so that as you complete this presentation, you'll be able to all be in the same starting point with your colleagues and have a similar level of understanding. You may get a few nuggets of information that you didn't know before if you feel you're already familiar. So we're going to walk you through it. And I'm taking you to the website. Yay, I love it when technology works. That's great. Okay, so what you're seeing is OSPI's homepage. And there's a lot of information on here. For the purposes of today, we're going to ask you to go to this icon down here that says K-12 Data and Reports. Step 1, click there. Step 2, we're going to go to the OSPI Performance Indicators. So you're basically going to the very top link. Easy to find because it says Data and Analytics. Step 3. You have here a list of all the performance indicators, and where there is data currently accessible, you'll have a live link available underneath the measure of success or the performance indicator. For the purpose of today, we are going to look at English language arts, math, and science assessment. That's going to take you down to the bottom of that page so that you can look at assessment. Just so you know before I move on, we're going to go to the data files themselves under Tableau. However, if you come back another time, just know under helpful resources, there are several other presentations similar to this one, as well as some tutorials about how to walk through. So if for any reason you forget this step-by-step process, hopefully you can at least get to here. And then that will walk you through. If you click on video tutorials, it'll actually give you a step-by-step process digging into the tool itself on how to be looking at it. So some helpful ways in which you can work within this tool even after today. Clicking on Assessment Analytics. Here you go. This is Tableau. So this is Tableau, the platform actually on our OSPI website. So I'm going to walk you through some of the tabs. There's a lot of information here, and we're not going to take the time to go through everything because I don't want to overwhelm, and I also want to focus on the things that matter most for our conversation today. Starting with the main page, you'll notice there are 3 categories here. We're focused on proficiency today. That, in essence, for our conversation relates to assessment outcomes. Also on this site are the student growth percentiles as well as tab labels. So we're not going to talk about these today. It's for a future conversation. So we're just focused on proficiency today, and you'll see that it's highlighted. Underneath this, so you'll notice there are tabs, a list of tabs up here. Each of them has a different function and a different set of information. You'll notice that we're on business rules right now. Business rules, for the sake of today, that doesn't have anything to do with the stocks. It's really just about what you're looking at. And Aira alluded to all of this earlier, but essentially this gives you information about what data you're actually looking at various levels, and it also what you're not looking at. And I think this is really important because I'm going to say this many, many times, and I hope that you hear this, is that it is not our aim or goal to tell you, wait, I'm not finding what I wanted, essentially to tell you what this means for student performance. Oh, these reports do not draw conclusions about the performance of individual students. So that's really important to note, is that we are looking at groups of students, we're looking at trends, we're looking at comparisons from one year to another, but really we hope that when you're looking at individual students, you're doing that work at a more local level. So we don't want to make too many assumptions about what we're looking at, even though there's a temptation to do so. It also talks quite a bit about the suppression rates. Again, just remember that if you have fewer than 10 students in any one particular category, whether that's a subgroup or a building level or in a school or in a district, you're not going to see your information here. You would have to go to the EDS to look at your own individual school district in that case. So these are the business rules. Moving on, this tab is extremely helpful if you forget what all the other tabs to the right are. This is the table of contents. Unexpected error occurred. It's rebooting. Look, see, I'm modeling not getting nervous using data and online tools. Perfect, there you go. I wasn't nervous at all, not at all. So now you're looking at the table of contents. This is really helpful because as you look to all the tabs to the right, you're going to see P District Overview. What does that mean? Well, it's the proficiency assessment data, the proficiency data at the district level. What's nice is that this will give you sort of a highlight of essentially what it means. So it's an overview of the proficiency data for all districts for a single year, group, test course, and grade level. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. But in case you forget in the future, this gives a nice sort of table of contents and description about what each tab represents. And it also gives one example or a screenshot of what it is. So I'm not going to go through all of those, but it's a nice reference point for you moving forward. So let's dig in. We're going to look at the first tab. So P stands for proficiency. What you'll notice here, the tabs that you're seeing on the screen currently, all of them start with P. So all of the tabs currently in your view are for proficiency, but as you scroll to the right, I'll just show you that some of them start with an S. Those are tabs that are moving towards student growth percentiles, SGPs as we refer to them as. So we're not going to talk about that today, but that's why it's marked by an S or a P. So P, District Overview. So many ways to look at this data. So the first place to start is at the tabs to the top, or at the little icons to the top. So right now we're looking at year 2015-16. You can change this so you could actually look at different years, but not multiple years at one time. So this tab is specifically about looking at multiple districts. You'd have to pick one year to look at a time. So we're looking at 2015-16. Right now we're going to look at all students for a district, but as you dig deeper into the data, I would encourage you always to start looking at subgroups. So you may want to look to see a comparison between female and male students, or low income and non-low income, or white and other ethnicities. So there are ways that you can manipulate the data on other tabs, but for this purpose, we're just going to look at all students right now. Because Aira is here, and she's the ELA director, we're going to represent, and we're going to go to ELA. You're welcome. But you do have to select it. So again, it's really important that you're paying attention to the drop-down menus, because if they are manipulatable. Is that a word, ELA director? Manipulatable for the purpose of today? Can it be?
I'm gonna let it go for today.
Okay, good. So you'll need to adjust that, and the default is math. So if you're hoping to look at something else, you just have to be intentional about that. And then we're going to look at third grade, but as you see, there are multiple grade levels you can pick. So there we go. So now you know what we're looking at. We're looking at 2015-16 school year assessment data for all students for Smarter Balanced Assessment in English Language Arts at the third grade level. I am going to, again, we didn't go ahead and look at any particular schools, so any schools that I select are completely at random, and we just want to encourage you, again, to note that this is not a way for us to penalize or look at school districts in a negative way. As Aira said earlier, what we really hope for is to look at those positive outliers and find out what it is that they're doing that's intentional, that's yielding the results that help them be at the upper end of these outcomes, and hopefully figure out ways that we can replicate those practices in other school districts. So I'm just going to pick randomly a school district up here towards the top. So Lake Washington, as you see, has 2,364 students at the third grade level who were SBA tested in ELA, representing all students in 2015-16. If you look at this, it gives you that drop-down menu, and as it compares to what this red line is, which is the state standard for this group, which will change as you manipulate this information up here, it will shift. So then as you shift down, so if I just click on, let's go back to Lake Washington because they have a lot of students at this level. So you highlight them there. You can see them as they compare to what we affectionately term the unibrow. Okay, that's a technical term, I'm sure. And then as you scroll down, you see a list of all the school districts, so it's in alphabetical order. You can find Lake Washington down here, highlighted. So it shows you again, district number, the number of third grade students, all students who met standard, 81.4%, as compared to the state average, which was 54.3. Another way to look at the data. A third way to look at the data on this screen is a map, and you'll see that they're highlighted here, so you know geographically where they're located. You'll also see color coding that represents the educational service districts. We'll show you more about that on a future tab. And another drop-down menu that shows you there. So 3 different ways to look at the data. Another neat feature about Tableau, as you scroll down to the bottom of the page, is that you can share this. If you're social media savvy and you're really excited about your school district, you can post this to your Facebook page, Twitter account. I don't think Instagram, just those 2. So, and then you can also download, if you wanted to save this to put in a PowerPoint presentation, you can download the screenshot and actually add it to other presentations that you might want to share with your constituents. So that's one way of taking a peek at the district level overview of your data. So let's say you wanted to dig in a little bit deeper. So again, you're just looking at high level third grade. Let's say you want to look at maybe female students as it compares to the overall average. So again, just noting that you have 2,364 third grade students at Lake Washington, and they are performing at 81.4% as compared to the state average. So if you want to look at, let's just say, female students within that group, They didn't change too much in terms of their location on the unibrow. You'll notice that within that population then, you'll see that of those 2,000 some odd students, 1,163 are female, and they're actually performing a little bit higher than the overall average at 85%. So one way you can manipulate the data so that you can look at subgroups. So I'm going to let you digest that for a second. It's kind of exciting. You can look at the data in this way. And this is a good starting point because you're looking at more high-level, district-level data. So I think I'm going to move on to ESD at this point, so you can take another peek, another way to look at the data. So this is going to look very similar to the previous tab, but the additional icon or box that you're looking at here is the ESD level. So I'm going to make this the same as the last one. I'm going to make it SBA ELA. Still looking at third grade, still looking at all students, still 2015-16. But let's go ahead and unmark all of these and just look at where we're sitting now, 113. So you'll see less dots, obviously, because we're just looking at 1 out of the 9 ESD regions. Sometimes this menu doesn't go away, so you just have to go back up to the box and click again. So again, you can look at it in similar ways, 3 different views. And if you come up here and click on one of the positive outliers for this ESD region, it's going to give you similar information. So we're looking at Great View right now. For this particular group of students, we have 28 third grade students for Great View Elementary. That's a 75% rate of success here, and then proficiency is the word I should use, as compared to the 54.3% average. Again, looking at it in a very similar way to how you did at the district level, you can look at it at the ESD level. If I wanted to do a similar sort of comparison like I did in the previous, this time I'll look at male as opposed to female. It moved just slightly over, and you're looking at 16 students, 16 male students in the same groups at a 68.8% proficiency rate. Moving on to the next tab. So now as we're getting closer to school level, so we started at district, we moved to ESD, and now we're at school. So each time you move a tab over, you're going to see additional boxes added up here. So just more ways in which you can manipulate the data. So we're still at 2015-16. Let's look at a random school district. I'm going to pick Castle Rock. I'm not going to do any shifts for OSSS identifiers. I'm not quite as familiar with those, but I know many of you are, and we actually presented at the OSSS conference, and this is super helpful to the coaches in looking at their own groups, so something that could be very usable for you, as well as Title I identifiers. We're still looking at all groups. I'm going to do drop down for ELA, and we're going to keep it at third. So again, you see a unibrow. Curious if you know something different about this unibrow as it compares to other unibrows. It seems like there's a steeper curve to me than the previous. I didn't mean to lead you into that. I kind of answered the question. My bad. So I will again take a peek up here at one of the positive outliers. So each time you go to the right, you're going to see more boxes and more information provided in this little icon that pops up when you click on a dot within the unibrow. Again, gives you similar information in terms of the MET standard as compared to the school, as compared to the district, and also the number of students in that category or group. So, and it's organized down here as it relates to OSSS identifiers in Title I. So a little bit of a shift in the look. It doesn't show you all of the schools in that case. It shows you the elementary schools listed within that school district for Castle Rock.
So I think it would be Marissa, can you go down? So
You bet.
Marissa chose Castle Rock, and as we were saying that there's some data that's suppressed. As you can see with Castle Rock Elementary, the student body is too small, so there's no information in this system to allow you to know how the students did at Castle Rock, just to respect students' identifiable information.
So let's maybe pick a larger school district so that you can see a little more functionality here. I'm going to guess Bremerton, maybe we won't have the same level of suppression. Great. So we see, got Bremerton there. Did I pick Bremerton? Yes, Bremerton. I'm going to refresh it, see if that helps. Oh. One thing that you should also know about this is that you can't break it. If you could break the system, I would have done it already. So feel free, again, to just play with it. I think this is a really good experience that you just hop in here and start playing with the tabs. And again, really, you cannot break the system. It will not allow you to do so. So go in there and don't be afraid. It's not going to Bremerton, and I don't know the reason why. Yeah, let's try Bellevue. It's interesting. It's not popping up. So it does show us down here. It's not showing it to us on the unibrow, but it is showing us the schools within Bellevue here for elementary. And it's popping up elementary because we're looking at third grade data. Okay. So not exactly sure why it's not popping up on the main unibrow, but you do have this unibrow down here that's representative of Bellevue schools specifically, and as all of the elementary schools fall. Isn't it interesting that within one school district you can have such differences in proficiency levels between students on different campuses? Just an interesting thing to notice. So you're looking at one of the elementary schools performing at just over 40% and another at almost 100% within the same district. So there are many more tabs to the right, but because of time, I'm not going to spend any more digging into them more deeply, but do hope that you do so yourself. The first three that I did are a little bit more high level. Each time you go through, you're looking at deeper and deeper levels. Again, I think Aira and I would echo together that looking at subgroup populations is looking at outliers, positive outliers, and finding out what they are doing well, and looking at your own subgroup populations to find out if there are disparities, and really asking yourself why. And this is a great tool to be able to start having those conversations. I'm hoping that, great, I went right back to the PowerPoint presentation. So again, just a little overview of what the dashboard can do, and now we're going to do a questions and polling with Kathy.
That's right. So for our poll, we're going to be asking you, how do you feel about using the analytics to better understand equity in your assessment scores? So just getting a temperature for the room. I can find places where my district has work to do. I have basic understanding, but I'm still struggling. And if you want to write us a question, please feel free to do that. For C, I'm confused, but once I get in the tool, I think I can figure it out. Or D, I could use someone on help. So we're actually low on questions this round, which is a big surprise. So if you guys do have questions, feel free to write them in there.
It's probably not because they're looking at their own data on the data dashboard tool. Yeah, probably not.
We'll close those.
Okay.
Okay. And for our results, the majority think I can find places where my district has work to do, that's 53%. And following that up, I'm confused, but once I get into the tool, I think I can figure it out.
Okay, that's good. And just so you know that we also at OSPI feel like we have work to do too. So we're with you in solidarity on that endeavor.
Oh, and I do have one question if you're up for it. When will the discipline date be updated? Do you guys know about that?
When will the discipline data be updated?
I think later this month. I believe it's this month. So
Is there a schedule listed on the performance indicators website?
On Tableau?
On Tableau?
That's a question. Is it in Tableau? Is discipline going to be in Tableau? It
Yeah,
should be, yeah.
it will be.
It will be in
Yeah.
Tableau, and I don't know if the schedule is there or not, but
If you recall where I showed you the performance indicator list and the live links under some of the performance indicators where data is accessible, I believe probably under discipline there's previous years, and it will be updated when it's available. Dixie's going to do a little smartphone research as I move on to the next slide.
I am getting a comment from Susan.
Okay.
She says that the district preview has a schedule. It's in EDS.
Ah.
So if you'd like to look at that, it's there. And for discipline, it'll be March 9th.
Great. So, thanks, Susan. Great. All right, so the next couple slides, I'm not going to spend time really digging into too much, and we won't have time to allow you to debrief at your own sites. But I do hope that either you come back to this presentation, pull from the PowerPoint presentation, which will be available to you, and or ask us for access yourself, because these next few slides include questions that we hope you'll really start asking yourself in your own role, in your own schools and districts, and also have conversations with your colleagues about. These are, each individual slide probably could be 15 minutes to a full day, if not multiple days, of community of practice or professional learning community discussion, but a great place to start. So Aira mentioned this infographic that we pulled, what's the difference between equal and equitable. And we pose these questions not with our own preconceived answers. We don't have the answers for you. We have ideas. We've listened to school districts share with us what their thinking is, and there are a lot of truths to what the answers are. So it's not a black and white response, but we do want you to start asking yourself the questions: what is the difference between equal and equitable? In what ways does your district provide equitable experiences and instruction for your students? And maybe conversely, in what ways don't you, and you could? And how does this relate to assessment? And in fact, how does the assessment information, the assessment data itself, give you information about the first two questions? So one good tool for you to use. Another good tool for you to use, and this may be familiar to you because for the graduation presentation that Kefi and Dixie did, they actually posed these same questions to you. So as you open up your own data dashboard and start looking at your own district, this is a good guiding reflection. So review your data, ask yourself how your student subgroups compare to others, look at from one year to the next year how you see trends over time. We say this because we know you will compare yourself to districts, but compare yourself to similar districts in terms of performance and size and access to resources, and resist the temptation to think I'm better than or worse than another district and just leave it at that. There are reasons we perform at various levels, and really we want to get to the why. And then using your key performance indicators, are there any crossover issues? And what's great about these questions is that we're asking ourselves at OSPI the same questions. So as we're looking at graduation and attendance and assessment, we're hoping to find crossover, not just issues, but solutions. Really, we're focused on figuring out whether we're looking at attendance rates or graduation rates or assessment proficiency, where are we seeing positive outliers, and are they doing things that are similar that we can help schools replicate? So this is a great tool, a great series of questions for you to use in the future. What we don't want you to do, so there's a temptation as you ask yourself these questions. You find facts. You maybe make some assumptions about those facts. You speculate why those facts may be, and then you decide what you're going to do to fix the problem. This is a very normal series of both personal and professional ways to deal with problems. And we would encourage you. So if you're looking at the facts, you may find that your proficiency levels are below the state average at a certain grade level. So clearly, you're not doing exactly the right thing and you want to fix it. So what if you revamped your 10th grade math curriculum and then you get a new math curriculum? So that may actually be what you end up doing at the end of a more in-depth sort of question period, but we want you to avoid immediately finding an answer to the problem. Try to dig into the questions themselves, because you may find that the answers aren't as obvious as they may seem. One of the essential elements, or a list of essential elements that Dixie and Kefi and their team have determined from the graduation rate specifically, is some successes that they've seen or reasons why positive outliers have been successful in graduating their students at higher than the state average. So they see that there's transformational leadership within the district, and at the building level, they have a practice of collaborative inquiry. They see a tiered support system, and they're also using data to not only determine what the problems are, but also to evaluate changes in data to show success. So we haven't gotten there yet with the assessment data, but we are starting the process of identifying, maybe it will be these 4 bullets, maybe it will be something similar but different, but we are looking to answer the same questions. What are the essential elements for positive outliers in the assessment areas? I'm trying to progress, but it won't let me. Please hold. There we go. So before I move on to resources, once you look at your own data and ask some important questions, another sort of, this is a little bit deeper level of questions when you continue to have these conversations at the district and school and building level, is when you look at your data, what's making you wonder, what factors are affecting student performance, and how can your district impact them? What can you do to engage in conversations about these data in your district? What would you want to learn from other districts that are getting better results? So again, an opportunity to lean in to find answers to improve. And how can you use these new ways of looking at data to inform your district's efforts to improve equity? So after you have a chance to ask yourself questions about your own district, a deeper conversation about all of these elements is important. Again, this PowerPoint presentation will be available to you. If you forget all these questions, they're here for your resource. Speaking of resources, here is a slide that actually gives you some live links to the GATE website. Thank you, Dixie and Kefi, for hosting us. It's great to be a part of the conversation. Again, we're trying to model cross-division collaboration and working together to find similar answers to solve problems. And then also these are live links to each of the ELA math and science assessment pages.
And I just wanted to also point out, if you are feeling that ladder of inference and get to that point where you decide we might need to purchase a new curriculum, I want to draw everybody's attention that there are multiple instructional material tools to help you make a great decision on which curriculum you are going to purchase for your school or district. And that's on the instructional materials page under Learning and Teaching on the OSPI website, and it's for ELA, math, and science. So if you get to that place, just know that there are tools there to help you make the best informed decision for your students.
After you go through that collaborative inquiry.
Right, the
yes.
collaborative inquiry,
yes.
Implementation science.
Love it,
right.
All of those. For technical information, if you have questions about the data themselves, here is a list of extraordinarily competent, smart, and friendly people who talk about data in a way that makes sense. And that's Susan Kanega, who joined us today, and Tim Stessinger as well. Ashley and Erica have been really helpful at informing us about what the data actually means. So again, a collaborative process to find answers to our questions. And then Kefi, do you want to talk about what's up next?
Oh, sure. Next month we're going to be looking at our graduation highlight districts. So these are the districts that are finding success with low-income students in graduation, and that'll be March 8th from 10 to 11. Thank you so much for presenting, Marissa and Aira. You guys have been wonderful. And one last question for you guys. Are there any future plans to include components within the assessment, such as reading, writing, or listening in the ELA?
So right now, we have the reading and writing that is already embedded in there within the claims and targets that are accessed within the Smarter Balance assessment. We know that we have our students reading in all of the assessments, reading and answering questions, whether it's short answer, multiple choice, or writing short responses. You can see that in the interim assessments, the block assessments, and also the summative assessment. The speaking and listening piece, right now it's just the listening where we do have a recorded video where students listen and then respond to questions. I know that there is talk about adding in the speaking piece, but we're not quite there yet. If you need more information on the ELA assessment, feel free to either contact me or visit our site to get a better understanding of what encompasses the ELA assessment.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next month.